Hello, math kiddos, and welcome to today's lesson. Today we're going to be learning about how to solve two-step equations. So we've been working on solving one-step equations with adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Today we're going to add these into two-step equations. So learning target, I will be able to solve equations in one variable that contain more than one operation. All right, so if we look at this equation here, it says 1.5d plus 100 equals 130. Now, last time we only had one number by d. This time we have two numbers by d. We have a 1.5 and a 100. So the first thing that we say here is d is multiplied by 1.5, then 100 is added. To solve, we do this in the reverse order. So what we're going to do, so the last thing we said here is then add 100. And remember, we're going to do this in the reverse order, and we always have to do the opposite operation. So because this says then 100 is added, we're going to do the opposite of adding. So we are going to subtract 100 from both sides, and then we're going to divide. Okay, so we're going to do this in the reverse order. So we're going to subtract 100. So now we have 1.5d equals 130 minus 100 is 30. Now this says 1.5 times d, so the opposite of times is divide. So we're going to divide by 1.5, and we just might need to grab our calculator here and take 30 and divide by 1.5. So d equals 20. All right, let's try some of these sample problems. Okay, first sample problem. So you should have a piece of paper and a pencil out, and you should be copying these things down. So we're going to do this in opposite operations. So we're going to look at our equal sign, and we have two numbers that we have to deal with. We have to deal with the 4 and the 10. And the last thing we're going to deal with is the number that is attached to the letter. So the first thing we have to deal with is this plus 10. And we do the opposite operation, and because that says a plus 10, we are going to subtract 10 from both sides. So we have 4a, because 10 minus 10 cancels out, equals, and 18 minus 10 is 8. Now we're left with 4 times a equals 8, so the opposite of times is divide. So we're going to divide both sides by 4. And we get 1a equals 2. Well, we know that mathematicians don't usually put that coefficient of 1 in front, so normally we're just going to write this as a equals 2. All right, second problem on this page to do is 5t minus 2 equals a negative 32. All right, so what we're going to do is draw our line down, and the two numbers that are by t are the 5 and the negative 2. Okay, and the first number that we have to deal with is that negative 2. And because that says negative 2, we are going to add 2 to both sides. So these are going to cancel out, and you're left with 5t, and negative 32 plus 2 is a negative 30. Remember, you guys can use your calculators. So now this says 5 times t. The opposite of times is divide. So we're going to divide both sides by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. And remember, we do not have to write that coefficient of 1. We can just write t equals. And negative 30 divided by 5 is a negative 6. So t equals a negative 6. All right, this problem here, so we still have our equal sign. We have two numbers by x. We have a negative 4 and a 7. And we always want to take care of the number, just the constant, the one that is not attached to the letter. And because this says negative 4, the opposite of a negative 4 is adding 4. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And notice I went all the way over to the other side. And negative 4 plus 4 cancels out, and we're left with 7x equals, and 3 plus 4 is 7. 7 times x, the opposite of times is divide. So we're going to divide both sides by 7. So this is going to cancel out to be 1x. So we're just going to write x equals, and 7 divided by 7 is 1. All right, here they put the p on the other side, it looks like, but we still have two numbers by p. We have the 2 and the 10. And what number are we going to get rid of first? Do we have to move that 2 or the 10? And we are going to subtract 10 from both sides. And remember to use your calculator so you get this math right. -4 minus 10 is a -14. And these cancel out, so we're left with just 2p. And that means 2 times p. So the opposite of times is divide. So we're going to divide both sides by 2. So -7 divided by 2. I'm sorry, -14 divided by 2. My brain was going ahead of me in getting the answer of -7. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. So we really have 1p. But remember, mathematicians, we do not have to write that 1. So p equals a -7. All right, we've got some fractions here. So we still have this equal sign, and the number I need to move first is the 1/5. And because that says plus 1/5, we're going to do the opposite. So I'm going to subtract 1/5 from both sides. So I have 2/5 n equals, and 7/5 minus 1/5 is 6/5. Now, if you recall how we get rid of this when we have a fraction in front of that letter, remember we multiply by the reciprocal. And the reciprocal, so if we have 2/5, the reciprocal of 2/5, remember we want to flip that so the bottom becomes the top and the top becomes the bottom. So we are going to multiply both sides by that reciprocal, 5/2. 5/2. Notice I have my line straight across. Everything is in its place on top and bottom. So these 5's cancel, one on top, one on the bottom. 2's cancel, one on top, one on the bottom. So we're left with just n equals. And now we have a 5 on top and a 5 on the bottom. So those cancel out. And now it is 6 divided by 2. And what is 6 divided by 2? Is 3. Now remember, you can use your calculator. So you can just put in your calculator 6/5 times 5/2 and hit your equal sign, and you will get your answer, and it's going to come out to be 3. So n is 3. So remember, when we have this fraction, we have to multiply by the reciprocal. All right, I think this is the last review problem that we have today. So, all right, what do we have? Y divided by 8 minus 3/4. So the opposite of subtracting 3/4 is going to be to add 3/4. So when we do that, we still have y divided by 8. And 5/4 plus 3/4 is 8/4. Well, what is 8/4? What is 8 divided by 4? And 8 divided by 4 is just 2. So I'm going to write my 2 here. All right, now what does this say? Y divided by 8. What's the opposite of dividing by 8? Is going to be to multiply by 8. So on the left-hand side, we have a y, 8 on top, 8 on the bottom. They simplify. 8 divided by 8 is 1, 1y. So we just have y equals, and 2 times 8 is 16. So remember, when it says y divided by 8, our work is going to be to multiply both sides by 8. All right, that should be a review of what we do on two-step equation solving. So good luck on your homework.